the first thing I remember is the sound of my own breathing. It was heavy, uneven, desperate. His hands were on me, the same hands I once knew better than my own, the same hands that had not touched me in years. My back was pressed against the cool sheets of the hotel bed, and I could feel the heat of his body pulling me back into a world I thought I had closed the door on forever. My wedding ring caught the dim light of the room when he gripped my hand, but I did not stop him. I could not stop him. It was not just a kiss, not just a moment of weakness. It was fire consuming every promise I had ever made to my husband. I whispered his name, my ex's name, while my husband was miles away, believing I was out late with a girlfriend. And when it was over, when the sweat cooled and the silence set in, I knew I had crossed the line that could never be undone. I had slept with my ex. And then, only an hour later, I drove home, slipped quietly into my house, and lay beside my husband as if nothing had happened. Before I go any further, let me pause for a moment. I want to appreciate all of you for being here. To my subscribers, thank you for fueling this channel with your support. To my new and returning viewers who have not yet subscribed, I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button, because that simple act is the energy that keeps this channel alive and helps me continue sharing stories like this. And please, do not hold back, share your thoughts in the comments right after this hook, because I want to know how you feel about what I am about to reveal. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Claire. I am 36 years old, a white American woman living in a quiet suburban neighborhood in North Carolina. I have been married to my husband, Daniel, for 11 years. Daniel is the kind of man who prides himself on stability. He is steady, reliable, a provider in every sense of the word. He works long hours as a financial advisor, always focused on making sure we never lack security. Together, we have built a comfortable life. A home with a wide porch, 2 cars, vacations once a year, and on the outside, the kind of marriage that looked enviable to others. But on the inside, something was missing. Daniel loved me, but over time his love became routine. Dinners at the table were silent, conversations were shallow, and intimacy was scheduled, almost transactional. I would look at him sometimes and feel like I was living with a roommate instead of a husband. He was dependable, yes, but the fire that once existed between us had long burned out. That was when Mark came back into the picture. Mark was my ex-boyfriend from my college years. He was my first real love, the one who had taught me what it meant to feel passion. We had broken up when life took us in different directions. He was reckless, spontaneous, never the kind of man you built a future with, but always the one who made your heart race. Years had passed since I last saw him, but one evening, scrolling through social media, I saw his name pop up. At first it was harmless. A simple friend request. A short message, "Hey, it has been forever. How have you been?" I should have ignored it. I should have clicked delete. But I did not. We started talking. Late at night when Daniel was asleep, I would lie in bed with the glow of my phone lighting my face, trading messages with Mark. The conversation flowed effortlessly, almost dangerously. He reminded me of the girl I used to be, the wild one, the spontaneous one, the woman who was not trapped by routine. His words made me laugh again. They made me feel seen in a way I had not felt in years. From there, it escalated. Messages became calls. Calls became video chats. And soon, we agreed to meet. The first time I saw him again, it was like no time had passed. He stood outside a coffee shop in downtown Raleigh, his smile crooked, his eyes filled with the same mischief I remembered. I felt a rush of guilt just walking toward him, but when he hugged me, when I inhaled the familiar scent of his cologne, the guilt melted into desire. That coffee shop meeting turned into dinners, drinks, excuses made to Daniel about staying late at work or meeting up with a girlfriend. Each time I crossed another line, the easier it became to keep lying. I told myself it was just catching up, just harmless nostalgia. But I knew I was lying to myself as much as I was lying to my husband. The tension built until one night, it snapped. Mark texted me late, "I booked a hotel. Meet me." I stared at my phone, my heart racing. I knew what it meant if I went. There would be no coming back from it. But something inside me craved it too much to resist. I told Daniel I was meeting my friend Jenny for dinner. I kissed him on the cheek as he sat on the couch with his laptop open, and then I walked out the door carrying the weight of a lie that would change everything. The hotel was dimly lit, the hallway quiet. When Mark opened the door, I stepped inside, and all the years, all the distance, disappeared in an instant. He kissed me before I could even think, his lips pressing hard against mine, his hands pulling me close as if I still belonged to him. Every promise I had ever made to Daniel dissolved in that moment. The passion was intoxicating, reckless, and consuming. My wedding ring pressed against his chest when I held him, and for a second I wanted to rip it off, to bury the shame. But I did not. I left it on, a cruel reminder of who I was betraying with every touch, every moan, every whispered name. When it was over, I lay there staring at the ceiling, my chest rising and falling. Guilt gnawed at me, but the thrill was undeniable. I had just done the unthinkable. And yet, instead of ending it there, I pulled my clothes back on, fixed my hair in the mirror, and told him I needed to go. Driving home, I rehearsed lies in my head. Jenny and I had dinner. We talked about life. Time slipped away. By the time I walked through the front door, Daniel was still awake, sitting on the couch with his laptop, waiting for me. He looked up, smiled faintly, and asked, "How was dinner?" I smiled back, my heart pounding in my chest, and said, "It was good." Then I went upstairs, showered quickly, slipped into bed, and lay next to my husband, pretending to be the faithful wife he believed I was. But inside, I knew the truth. I had slept with my ex. And I had gone home to my husband. The morning after that night, I woke up to the sound of Daniel making coffee in the kitchen. The smell drifted upstairs, rich and bitter, and for the first time in years I hated it. That smell had always been part of my routine, part of our mornings together. But now it felt like an accusation, a reminder that I was living one life in his home and another in secret. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the sheets twisted around me, the weight of guilt pressing on my chest. I had cheated. I had crossed the line, not just in my mind but in my body. I was not innocent anymore. The thought of rolling over and kissing Daniel on the cheek like I always did made my stomach twist. When I finally went downstairs, he looked up from the counter with that soft, reliable smile of his and asked, "Did you sleep well?" I forced myself to nod. Yes, I did. My voice came out steady, but inside my heart was trembling. He handed me a mug of coffee, kissed my temple, and went on about his plans for the day. He had no idea. He was the same steady man he had always been, while I had become someone else overnight. For the first week, I told myself it had been a one-time mistake. That night with Mark had been wrong, reckless, but final. I told myself I would bury it, never go back, never let it happen again. But that was a lie I barely believed as I thought it. Because Mark was not done with me. He texted me the very next day, "Last night was unforgettable. When can I see you again?" I stared at the screen, my heart racing, every nerve in my body pulling me in two directions. I wanted to delete the message, to block his number, to slam the door shut before I destroyed everything. But instead, my fingers typed back, "Soon." That was how it began. The days became a cycle of guilt and temptation. In the morning, I was Daniel's wife, folding laundry, planning dinners, attending neighborhood events. At night, when Daniel fell asleep, I slipped into the bathroom, phone in hand, texting Mark like a teenager hiding from her parents. The thrill was intoxicating. The secrecy itself became part of the addiction. Each time Mark asked to see me, I invented new lies for Daniel. Work dinners. Girls' nights. Yoga classes. Each lie was easier than the last, and Daniel never questioned them. He trusted me blindly, and that trust became the weapon I used to betray him again and again. The second time I saw Mark, we met in his truck on the outskirts of town. The windows fogged up while my wedding ring dug into my skin as I clutched the seat. Every time I gave in, guilt hit me like a tidal wave afterward. But the guilt was not strong enough to stop me. One evening, Daniel surprised me with something I had not expected. "I booked us a weekend in Asheville," he said over dinner, his eyes warm with sincerity. "Just the two of us. We need it." I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. Asheville was where we had gone on our honeymoon. He wanted to rekindle what we had lost. He wanted me back. A part of me ached when he said it. But another part of me, the darker part, was already calculating how I would explain to Mark that I would be unavailable that weekend. The thought disgusted me, but it was the truth. I was living two lives now, and both demanded my attention. The weekend in Asheville was almost surreal. Daniel held my hand as we walked through the Biltmore estate, his thumb brushing over my skin in a way that used to make me melt. He kissed me on the balcony of our hotel overlooking the mountains, and for a moment I felt the old spark flicker again. But even as he kissed me, I thought of Mark. I hated myself for it. I hated that the man who had been faithful to me for over a decade was trying to bring me back to life, while my mind was somewhere else, with someone else. That night, when Daniel fell asleep beside me, I slipped into the bathroom of the hotel room and texted Mark under the warm yellow glow of the vanity light. My hands shook as I typed, but I could not resist. "I miss you," he replied instantly. "When you get back, come to me." Back home, my paranoia began to grow. Daniel had never been suspicious, but now every casual glance, every pause before he spoke, made me wonder if he knew. I became hyper-aware of my phone, careful to delete messages, to silence notifications, to keep it face down on the table. One night, Daniel walked into the room just as I was tucking my phone under a pillow. His eyes lingered on me for a second longer than usual. "Who were you talking to?" he asked. "Jenny," I lied quickly. "We are planning a girls' trip." He nodded slowly, but the look in his eyes unsettled me. For the first time, I wondered if he doubted me. Mark, on the other hand, was becoming bolder. He wanted more of me, more time, more risks. He hated the secrecy that I found both thrilling and terrifying. One night in his hotel room, after another reckless meeting, he pressed me against the wall and whispered, "Leave him. Be with me." The words sent a chill down my spine. Leave Daniel? And everything I had built? The thought felt impossible, yet a part of me trembled because I could not deny the way my body responded to Mark, the way he made me feel alive in ways Daniel no longer did. But when I looked into Mark's eyes, I saw something I had forgotten all those years ago. He was passion, yes, but he was also chaos. He was not a man of stability or loyalty. He was not the man you built a life with. He was the man who burned everything down. And I was letting him burn me. One evening, after weeks of juggling both men, I came home to find Daniel sitting on the couch with a strange expression on his face. His laptop was closed, his hands folded in his lap. "We need to talk," he said. My heart dropped into my stomach. "What about?" I asked, my voice too light, too fake. He studied me carefully. "Have you been happy? With us?" The question caught me off guard. My throat tightened. For a moment, I thought he knew everything, that Mark had called, or that he had found the messages. I forced a smile. "Of course I am happy." But Daniel's eyes narrowed, and I knew in that moment that something inside him had shifted. He did not have proof, not yet, but a seed of doubt had been planted. That night I lay awake beside him, staring into the darkness, my mind spinning. The walls of my double life were closing in. The lies were stacking higher, the secrets heavier. Mark wanted more. Daniel was growing suspicious. And I was trapped between the thrill of passion and the weight of betrayal. I had chosen fire, and I knew it was only a matter of time before everything went up in flames. The night everything came crashing down did not start with suspicion. It started with routine. Daniel and I had just finished dinner, pasta and salad, the same easy meal I made on weeknights. He helped me clear the dishes while we talked about bills, the grocery list, and our neighbor's new dog. It felt normal, safe, the kind of evening we had shared hundreds of times. But normal did not last. After dinner, Daniel disappeared into the office upstairs. I assumed he was catching up on work emails. I slipped into the living room with my phone, scrolling through messages, my thumb hovering over Mark's name. I knew I should not. Things had been tense lately, Daniel's eyes sharper, his questions heavier. But the pull was still there, the magnetic need to feel Mark's presence even through a screen. I typed a short message, thinking of you. The reply came almost instantly, come over. I need you tonight. My chest tightened. I stared at the words, desire and fear colliding inside me. I knew it was reckless. I knew Daniel was growing suspicious. But even as guilt gnawed at me, I could not resist. I stood, grabbed my purse, and walked upstairs to tell Daniel I was meeting Jenny. I pushed the office door open gently. He was sitting at his desk, his laptop screen glowing blue against his face. When he turned to look at me, I froze. Because on his screen was not a spreadsheet or an email. It was me. My messages. My words to Mark. I could not breathe. Daniel's voice was steady, too steady. How long? The world seemed to tilt under my feet. My mouth opened, but no words came out. I wanted to lie, to twist the truth, to find some way to escape. But the look in his eyes told me he already knew everything. His voice broke the silence again. How long have you been cheating on me, Claire? Tears pricked my eyes, but not from innocence, only from the crushing weight of exposure. I whispered, a few months. Daniel closed his eyes. His shoulders sagged, as if the weight of the world had been dropped on him. When he opened them again, there were tears, but there was also anger. I gave you everything. I trusted you completely. And you betrayed me in the worst way. I stepped closer, reaching out, desperate to touch him, but he pulled back as if my skin burned him. Do not, he said sharply. Do not touch me. You have no right. His voice cracked, and that hurt worse than his words. I had broken him. The days that followed were a blur of silence and distance. Daniel moved into the guest room, his presence a cold shadow in the house we had built together. I tried to speak to him, to explain, but every attempt was met with silence or a single, bitter reply, there is nothing to explain. Mark, on the other hand, flooded my phone with messages. He wanted me to leave Daniel, to run to him, to turn the fire we had into something permanent. But the more he pushed, the more I saw him for who he truly was, chaos, temptation, destruction. He was the spark that had ignited the fire, but I was the one who had struck the match. One night, Daniel finally confronted me fully. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the air heavy, the silence deafening. His eyes were red, his jaw clenched. Why, Claire? He asked. His voice was low, broken. Why did you do it? I swallowed hard, my throat raw. Because I felt empty. Because I wanted to feel alive again. Because I was selfish. The words hung in the air like poison. Daniel nodded slowly, as if my confession only confirmed the pain he already carried. Do you realize what you destroyed? Do you realize what you threw away? Tears slid down my cheeks. Yes. I do. But apologies were meaningless. They could not undo the nights I had spent in another man's arms, the lies I had whispered while looking into my husband's trusting eyes. The end came quickly after that. Daniel packed a bag, his movements mechanical, deliberate. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, watching him fold shirts into a suitcase, my chest aching with the pain I had brought on myself. Where will you go? I asked, my voice small. Somewhere you are not, he replied, his tone flat. I cannot look at you without seeing him. Without hearing his name. When he closed the suitcase and carried it down the stairs, the sound of the zipper felt like the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. He paused at the door, his hand on the handle. For a moment, I thought he might turn, might offer some shred of forgiveness. But he did not. He simply said, "You killed us, Claire. Remember that." Then he was gone. In the weeks that followed, I tried to piece together the ruins of my life. Friends drifted away as whispers spread through our neighborhood. Daniel's family, who had once embraced me as their own, cut all ties. My home felt like a prison, every room haunted by the ghost of what we once had. Mark was still there, still calling, still offering his reckless brand of love. But I no longer wanted him. He had been the escape, the thrill, the distraction. Now he was nothing but a reminder of my destruction. One night, I sat alone on the back porch, the air cool against my skin, the silence crushing. I stared at the empty chair beside me, the one where Daniel used to sit with his glass of bourbon, laughing about his day. And I realized with a sharp, searing clarity that I had thrown away the only man who had ever truly loved me. Not for love. Not for happiness. But for a fleeting moment of fire that burned everything to ash. If there is one thing I have learned from this, it is that betrayal does not end with the act itself. It ripples outward, breaking hearts, shattering trust, and leaving scars that never fade. I will carry the weight of my choices for the rest of my life. Daniel is gone. My marriage is over. And forgiveness is not part of this story. All that remains is regret.